For a country like India and for the problems that country like India has today, there are multiple challenges. But one fundamental pursuit of the government, of people, and for the nation as a whole is to uplift people from poverty and make them a part of the mainstream contributing workforce. Uh, this is an important part because that is the only and the surest way of people to get employment and to get money and create wealth. Now, how do we do this? So, because there are multiple things required, multiple things need to be done. And we can't be really talking about all those essential areas of focus for uplifting people up. But one thing that I mentioned last time, and one thing that I would like to elaborate more, is the deployment of technology as a big enabler to achieve and accomplish many of those challenges. And why so? The reason is because the best leveler today is the technology. Technology does not differentiate between poor and rich, or haves and have nots. In fact, technology only makes the people who are in possession of technology and are included in technology as better offs. And the reason for that is empowerment. Technology is a surest way of empowering people. Accessibility of information, accessibility of services, and understanding and being able to communicate with the system are the very basic form of empowerment. The poorest of the poor wants the information which he is entitled for to be made available to him without hindrance. Any of the things that he wants to voice against, or any request that he wants to communicate with the system, he feels or she feels that they should be able to do that easily. Technology, at a very basic form, enables people to do this. And that's the reason why we say technology is the biggest enabler for empowerment. Look at various government services. Really speaking, nobody wants to see the government. It's a very sweeping statement, but that's true. Nobody wants to see the government. We want to only feel the governance. And that's possible to have better feel of the governance when technology becomes as a carrier of that governance. That's why we say that as a part of the e-governance, all the government services then will be delivered or can be delivered to the masses using technology without any hindrance and without any physical interface. The worst thing in governance is when there is a physical interface. A physical interface is a doorkeeper, and that is the beginning of the cycle of corruption that it can lead into. So the second best thing that technology does is to eliminate the physical interface and therefore eliminate any opportunity for corruption, and make this whole governance more cleaner and more effective. The third thing technology can do is the speed of response. There is no way to accomplish this humongous task that India has today for lifting people out of poverty, and they're not less in number, the millions and millions of people. To do this, therefore, the speed of work is necessary. Any schemes, programs which need to be implemented, which touch the lives of multiple people, has to get implemented with speed. That is only possible with technology. And that's the reason when I mentioned this, that technology is one biggest panacea, the biggest solution to this big ailment or the challenges that the nation today faces. Channel partners are, of course, one of the most important and vital last mile link in the value chain from a vendor or technology provider to the end customer and user of the technology. And this last mile is an important vital link because this is the link that establishes the proposition that the vendor is wanting to offer and works in very close relationship with the customer that an end user wants. So from that angle, the channel community becomes a very important part in this whole ecosystem of, particularly of IT industry. Any association has a main goal of carrying a common voice and has an agenda which is a common interest agenda. When the associations build that common agenda and carries a process of inviting members' views more democratically, are the associations which have direction, clarity, and a higher acceptance amongst the members. Those associations where it is not done in that process and where it becomes a conflict of members' interest, where consensus is not developed and wider participation of members is denied, are the associations which then have bickerings and internal conflicts, disagreements, and lesser energy to pursue the common agenda. In India, when you ask me, there are more than 100 channel associations today. They are very regional specific and city specific. So naturally, the common agenda that they have is usually limited a lot with the local area. I would say that majority of the channel associations are able to handle and address the local agenda that they have. The challenge happens when the other part of the agenda, which either doesn't get properly discussed, debated, or is not considered as a priority sometimes by many channel associations, are bigger agendas. They are more national agendas. They are the agendas which basically talk about big picture. And naturally, for all channel members to prosper, grow, be more profitable, and look at additional opportunities, the main agenda has to be, there is no doubt about that, the main agenda has to be to see that the buoyancy of this industry continues and that growth in this industry picks up and that the drivers of this industry are strengthened and are particularly addressed if for some reason we find that they are slackening. That's the bigger agenda. That's the agenda that often gets missed out because it sometimes becomes a little bit difficult to comprehend. Sometimes it is assumed by the channel associations beyond their reach, and often it cuts across various channel associations and various regions and are not of very urgent need. And therefore associations' major agenda gets focused on to pressing those issues which have fire, so to say. But I am a very strong advocator that we need two forces in any channel association. One force that is constantly combating the local issues and the local fire or the urgent issues, and one force that continuously nurtures the big drivers of a business growth. That's a law of nature. either we grow or we perish. So, what unites all channel association, according to me, is this bigger agenda, big picture agenda, that how do we make the industry to grow continuously, and how do we make sure that the drivers of this industry are reinforced. That needs a little more help and support of even bigger association, umbrella association. Most of the drivers that we talk of any industry, are the drivers that are intertwined with the macroeconomic factors and forces. And it is impossible for any local association to even attempt to address any of those macroeconomic factors. So, therefore, at a national level, it is a good idea to address those issues and not get bogged down to local issues as much. Overall, I feel that India channel associations are doing reasonably good job at a local level, but are doing not so good job at a national level. You see, MAIT is an association that, although was created with this focus on local vendors and local manufacturers, then expanded to include the vendors which are all multinationals, but still a vendor-centric association. There are about 85 members of MAIT. What most of the people don't know is that the ground reality of the constitution of the members is very different today. It's not the way it was so a few years ago. Less than 50% of 85 members are actually vendors. More than 50% membership of MAIT is cutting across several categories of shall I say, business spaces within broad IT industry. There are about 7 system integrators in MAIT. There are about 5 recycling companies, recyclers, with e-waste becoming an important part of IT industry's agenda and government agenda in times to come. They will become increasingly more important in IT ecosystem. We have got 4 channel associations or distributors as members of MAIT. And then there are about 4 government nodal bodies. People don't know that government nodal bodies like ELCOT of Tamil Nadu are also, or NIXI, are also the members of MAIT. And it is so because they are very much a part of this industry. And for MAIT to have a successful task achievement of policies, agendas, etc., it's very important to understand the voice of government nodal bodies. They are the ones who procure the products that are made by vendors. And therefore, it is a very good idea to keep them on the same side of the table where the vendors are. And that's the reason why MAIT reached out to them and got them as members. So MAIT is changing. It has already become as an association, a platform which has multiple voices. The big idea here is that, like I mentioned for channel association, there are multiple agendas that an association like MAIT will have, and it always has. But we can never take our eyes off one main big agenda, and that is, how do we influence the drivers of IT industry? How do we grow the pie? And it's a time for India to be talking more of that. That's more important. If the pie expands, it's a good news for vendors, it's a good news for system integrators and recyclers and government nodal agencies, also channel association. However, we have to respect the fact that each of these individual spaces, or so-called specific vertical group of players, have their own agenda too. So we have to respect that part. So the big idea that MAIT is contemplating is to create houses within a house. So we then call them as chapters. And then we create, for example, SI chapter. We create environment or recyclers, that group as a chapter. We create a chapter for SMEs manufacturers, not the big vendors. When I'm talking about that vendor which may be manufacturing mouse in maybe one corner somewhere in Delhi, or one vendor coming from Tamil Nadu who is actually making keyboards, but they are all a part of a bigger IT ecosystem in India. So one chapter on this. Similarly, we are contemplating there should be a chapter which is like a federation of all the associations, the channel associations, the last mile part of the IT chain. When we create these chapters, then the individual specific issues, which are of course always a primary issue pertaining to that group, can be discussed, and also a big agenda which rolls up for MAIT main agenda is also an area that can be discussed. So we are contemplating whether we can create these chapters within MAIT and then broaden the membership. 85 is too less. MAIT should actually, according to me, should double its membership within the next 1 year, and still a scope of further doubling it up within the next 2 years' time. And then only I think we'll be a true representative of Indian IT hardware space with every aspect of those drivers of the business that can expand the pie included as their voice. And then I think we'll be a true representative when we go to the government and pursue with them, or go back to the industry and lobby with the industry about what are the essentials that we must do for everybody's better. You see, one is of course from time to time we have been looking at how do we add more members to MAIT. But one thing that we are now contemplating is to draw out a little long-term, clear roadmap, and to integrate the individual interest as a part of the MAIT's agenda, and then pursue this with a little bit more thrust. So the idea now, which is a little bit different than the past few years, is that we need to really pursue this with a bigger resolve, higher level of determination, and a stronger proposition. The proposition which should make people hard to refuse to become a member. Also, to bring people in, a simple mail will never help. It's like selling. When we go and do selling to customers and we expect that just because we have said who are we, a customer is going to buy, it never happens. There is a persuasion that needs to be done. More than a persuasion, there is a level of trust that needs to be established, an emotional connect that needs to be established. It's only then that people do business with people. Similarly in MAIT, if we are inviting members to become members of MAIT, we need to do that rather than just simply requesting them to become a member. And therefore it needs a little bit more stronger thrust from the MAIT team and a proper plan to reach out to larger number of people. This means more efforts, which we are going to be doing. MAIT does an annual strategy retreat deliberations, which is for 3 days, which we do at one of the places in India. This time we're doing it in Goa, and in December. And we are going to be chalking out clear implementable steps and necessary resources to be put behind it. Unless we put a resource behind it, it will not see result. So that's a very strong plan, or at least an idea that right now we have, but we will convert this into an actionable plan after this meeting. So now what's happening, there are 3-4 other important agendas that MAIT is crystallizing as the directions to move ahead. Sometimes what happens when you look at industry issues in the industry agenda, while it is a good idea to say you prioritize and you have got 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes it is even a better idea that you don't do a priority as 1, 2, 3, 4. You do a priority in blocks of 4. So you have top 4 priority issues, next 4 priority issues, and next 4 priority issues. The reason why it is done is that sometimes the drivers that drive a business are not one, and you've got multiple drivers. And when you try and cluster 4 or 5 in one, then it becomes sufficient driver that you should put your energy behind simultaneously into pushing them forward, rather than sequentially one by one. More so because of the complexity of the market dynamics, which are constantly changing and moving and rapidly transforming. So instead of just one, I will have a liberty of suggesting now in our annual meet and mate to the Executive Council, and this is how we will crystallize at least 4 main thrust areas in our top priority. Let me tell you about these 4. One thing, of course, is the continuity of the green environment that you just mentioned. It's very important for MAIT to put its weight behind its commitment and its resolve towards building a cleaner environment in India, and the mechanism to handle these e-waste systems at this stage, because I still feel that this is the beginning of a major growth in the industry that all of us are going to witness in next decade or 2. Since this is a perpetual issue, therefore, if a good mechanism is put, then we will be sure that as our economy grows, as IT industry prospers, as more consumers consume IT and technology, we will have lesser and not more problems of electronic waste. So this will definitely be one of our major thrust areas. We are working with Ministry of Environment. We have agreed to, as an industry, agreed to implement the e-waste regulation management rules from May of 2012, and now putting connections and networking of manufacturers, collection points, and the recyclers, so that this becomes as a very lubricated and a very smooth system of complete cycling. The second thrust area that MAIT is now seriously putting a lot of energy behind is improving government procurement systems. 40% of Indian IT industry, directly or indirectly, is consumed by government, either by government directly or in government projects. If such a huge amount of IT products are going to be consumed by government, then the system of procurement needs to be looked at. It is a serious issue because it's a huge procurement, and when this procurement is defective, if this procurement is not efficient, if this procurement is not a good balance between control, compliance, and better technology and a better efficient products usage, then the system is defective. So one fact here that comes to our notice is that the government procurement policies, or so-called the tender policies, or the DGS&D procurement rules were formed, or the manuals were formed several decades ago, not years ago. Technology has moved so rapidly. When the manual of DGS&D was created, internet was not even born. We cannot therefore treat IT procurement same as the procurement of other boxes and other products. In the current system of IT procurement, the industry is being denied introduction or replacement of the existing products with the new product, even if the first product has come to the end of life. This, according to me, is counterproductive to the use of efficiency into the system needs a correction. When you ship boxes, any items which are sold as boxes, shoes or jackets or books and such kind of stuff, to government bodies, you get payment on dispatch, and you get some payment after the things have been received. Dispatch is done by rail, and therefore government can pay it because they consider railway receipt as the receipt, so nobody can misuse it. Technology products cannot be dispatched by rail. We send it directly to the customer by courier or by road transport. Now, in a situation like this, therefore, the payment terms cannot be equated. They need to be different. Technology products have software, and then there are multiple upgrades of software. The whole system is different. It needs to be treated differently. That needs a correction. The third thrust area is the area of energy conservation. In a growing economy like India, the scarcest resource is energy. And if energy is not available, this engine will not have a fuel. So it's not only important to create more energy to fuel the growth in India, it is equally important to conserve energy wastage. And which are the products which use a lot of energy? Well, technology products definitely do. It is said that even the chargers of a mobile phone, if you are not charging but the switch is on, consumes some microampere power, and multiply by 800 million people, then you will know how much energy is wasted. So we have to create a system that energy conservation becomes key part of users and an important part of the vendors' education of the users. In case of IT products, still today there are millions of customers who are using the old CRT monitor. It needs to change to flat monitors. We are still using those printers and those IT peripherals which are consuming 10 times more power than the new models that have been launched by the industry now. So therefore, it's very important to put what is called energy efficiency program. Thankfully, Ministry of Power is putting their weight behind this, and MAIT is working with them to create what is called BEE, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, a star system, and we are working on that. This is the third agenda. It has to work in tandem along with the two other agenda. The fourth agenda that MAIT is pursuing currently is the agenda with basically combination of various ministries, but the agenda is on somehow controlling the second-hand imports of photocopiers and IT products. There is a huge amount of import of these products that happen in India. Now, the problem with that is that many of these products are e-waste outside India. Who will take the ownership? They are not imported by the vendors, they are imported by different parallel importers. Who will take the ownership of this so-called an e-waste? So this needs to be corrected. There has to be a mechanism. The argument is that many of the people use these copiers as an employment in small cities. MAIT is appreciative of the fact that people need employment. But the conduit of that is wrong. The right way, therefore, is industry to create a system where it's all regulated. So if government needs this employment to continue and second-hand products to continue to go down into smaller cities, then it must be routed through a legitimate channel. Government will not lose duties and revenues. Industry will take the ownership of that, and a complete system will be a lot more organized and legitimate than the current system. This is the fourth area in which MAIT is working. And then we have got other buckets of other areas of focus, and then many more new areas are coming every day.